The book of Revelation is God telling us how it all ends. But one of the things he tells us is, in the Lord's Prayer that you prayed last hour, standing up, it says, "Thy kingdom come." Do you know what that is? That's us praying every day for God's kingdom to come. Why does God want us to pray every day for his kingdom to come? Well, let's get a context to where we are. You notice that we're in the second part of Revelation. We've finished in 8 classes Christ Church on earth. Now we're looking at Christ Church in heaven. It's God showing us in the book of Revelation the answer to our daily prayers. What are we supposed to be praying? For God's kingdom to come on earth. For God's will to be done on earth. Is it today? Not very clearly. It seems like it's everything else. But who did this letter go to? It went to people that were in the epicenter of the Roman Empire. What does the epicenter mean? It means that they were immersed in a self-seeking, lust-feeding culture. That's the Roman culture. And every day, immersed, distracted, tempted out of their minds by the world around them, they were supposed to pause and say, "Focus me, God, that you're my Father, my perfect Father. I want to hold your hand all day. Our Father which art in heaven. I want to hallow your name. And I want your kingdom to come." Your kingdom is not very visible right here in Roman Asia. We have in Pergamum the throne of Satan sitting on Zeus's throne. We have all this horrible stuff going on. They knew that the world was getting darker and darker around them. Their lives were being threatened. There was just this wholesale plunge by all of society into all the sins of the Roman Empire, and God shows them in Revelation chapter 5. The ultimate kingdom is coming to earth. What's the ultimate kingdom? Well, it was promised in the Old Testament. Did you know that 28% by some scholars, 24% by others, of the Old Testament is looking forward to all the pieces of this prophecy of God's ultimate rule, that God himself is going to invade the earth. He came the first time under cover, under swaddling clothes cover. He came as an infant, nobody recognized. And he showed a few signs that he was the king, but he didn't ever do anything. He didn't conquer. But boy, when he comes in the invasion, nobody misses it. Okay, let's read about that. Look at chapter 5, the first 7 verses. "And I saw at the right hand of him who sat on the throne." So we're back looking at our Father on the throne. "A scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals." And that sounds funny to us because we're not from this. Remember, the ultimate first interpretation is, what did that mean to the people that got it? Well, it meant everything. They knew exactly what he was talking about. Think of a roll of paper towel. That's what a scroll looked like, a roll of paper towel. And think of both sides of the paper towel written on, and think of that someone unrolled, about 3 feet of it and wrote on both sides, and then they rolled it up and put a seal so you couldn't open that part. Then they rolled it more and put another seal like that. And so the first person would break the seal, and they'd only get to see the first part unrolled. That's what we're talking about, this scroll. It had 7 seals. And I heard a strong angel. By the way, it's very interesting. This might refer to Gabriel, because Gabriel, is strength of God. And so it could be there are 2 angels named in the book of Revelation. Michael, clearly, in chapter 12. Possibly Gabriel here and also in chapter 10. And a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and loose his seals?" And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or look at it. So John inserts a personal word. "So I wept much because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look at it. But behold, one of the elders said to me," those guys on the thrones talk. They're people. Now we found out what those 24 thrones, those are our people. And they're there, and they're engaged, and they're talking, by the way, and they represent us. And the reason there's 24 is probably the same reason that there are 24 other things in heaven. There are 12 gates and 12 foundations. And if you remember that the 12 gates are the 12 tribes, and the 12 foundations are the 12 apostles, and there's 24 of them. So it's very likely the 24 elders are representative of Israel and the church, who are merged in heaven. There's no separation in heaven. Once you get up to heaven, it's a great one big family of the redeemed. Amazing. So one of the elders said to me in verse 5, "Don't weep. Behold, a lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David. Now we get all that Old Testament allusion, has prevailed to open the scroll, to loose its 7 seals. And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne, and in the midst of the 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb. Now look at John, who knew Jesus better than all the other apostles, who was the one Jesus loved, who put his head on Jesus' shoulder during the Last Supper. I mean, this guy is close. A lamb as though it had been slain. Wow. Look at this. Jesus is the lamb, and he's portrayed in heaven like a violently slaughtered Passover lamb. It's interesting, but he's alive. Passover lambs were slaughtered. So Jesus, the slaughtered lamb, is standing there. Do you know what this verse indicates? Jesus will still bear the scars of his crucifixion in heaven. Oh, we already know that, right? Thomas saw the big hole of the big head of the Roman spear shoved into Christ's side. Thomas said, Jesus said, put your hands into the place. So in Jesus' post-resurrection appearance, he had indentation, scar, holes, indentation, scar, holes, indentation. But in those passages, it doesn't talk about the rest of him. Do you know what this implies? That all of the horrors of crucifixion, Jesus is still going to be bearing them. If it wasn't 9:15, I would tell you about when I was a youth evangelist in Denver, Colorado, and I had to have a second job, so I was a school bus driver. So I used to drive school buses in Colorado. That's a fun story. But when I was a youth evangelist, I remember an event that happened in Denver. It was a tragic event. Out on the outskirts of Denver, there was a mother that was struggling, living in a very small mobile home, and she had this child. She was a single parent, and she never got away. She was either at work and the child was in daycare, or she was home taking care of the child. She was very poor. And one day, finally, she got an invitation to go somewhere. She went with the people, but she was scared to death, hired a babysitter. All the story, she left, but was scared, came back after an hour, didn't want to leave her child alone. And when they came back, the police were blocking the road, far from her house. She said, what's up? She said, I've got to get home. My child is there. They said, oh, there's been a gas explosion, a big fire. You got to stay here. She said, no. And she left her car and walked, and she got closer and closer to the trailer park. And her trailer was, 30-foot high flames. And she just panicked, ran. This was in the paper. Horrible. She got there, and there was a fireman standing, how firemen stand with the gas mask and everything. This fireman had gotten there when the fire had started, had broken in through the door. The babysitter had gotten out, but the babysitter said there's this child in there, this little tiny, 2-year-old child in the back in the crib. And the fireman went in, took the fireman blanket and everything, wrapped it around, and he had just come out of there holding that child. And what the newspaper said, it was very sad, that when the fireman came out, and he was standing there holding this, the mother came up and she thought that was her 2-year-old. And what happened was the fireman had gotten the child, and the child was out. And so she was so happy, and she lost everything but the child. The problem is that the mother had somehow, there was something else, she had gone in, she had gotten into her burning thing, and when she came out with whatever it was she had to rescue, she had gotten burned. So the story went on to say this whole event. The reason I'm telling you that is that I found out later that this mother, who had the child rescued through the fire and lost everything, had been injured and burned, and she didn't afford all the plastic surgery. And so as her child grew up, this one that she had run to and the police had rescued and the firemen, and she had gotten burned getting some treasure from her child's past. The mother had scars. And so as the child got into middle school, she'd say, "Don't take me all the way to school, just leave me here." Further and further from the school. Until finally, in high school, the mother said, "You don't want your friends to see me, right?" And the girl said, and the mother said, "Just one thing I want to tell you. These scars are from the night I was a part of your rescue from a burning place. The firemen got you, and I went in to get, things that you still treasure to this day." And she said, "My scars are tied to you even being here today." Did you know that child began asking her mother to walk her into school? Her mother's scars became a trophy that she told her friends about, that my mother, a single parent, loved me so much, ran to a burning building, was there to receive me out of the flames, had the firemen protect me while she dragged out things and was caught with a flame of fire that caused scars on her face. Do you know what I think about? How we often think of Jesus in the distance, but forever in heaven, when we look at his face, this is what's going to happen. Look at chapter 5. Now, do you see why this happens? "And they sang a new song," verse 9, saying, "You are worthy to open the seals, for you were slain, and you redeemed us, you scarred lamb, with all those crucifixion, horrible scars. You redeemed us by your blood." Every time we see Jesus in heaven, we're going to be reminded, like the little girl was reminded when she got big, that her mother's scars were tied to when she got saved. We're going to be reminded that you have redeemed us by your blood out of every tribe and tongue. So basically, Jesus will forever be the slaughtered Lamb of God. But look what it says. He has 7 horns and 7 eyes. What's that? That's a picture. Horns of power, eyes of sight, of his omnipotence. So he looks like a lamb with horns and eyes, but he's still Jesus. But the part he retains is he looks slain.